Okay, my name is Marie Edgar now. My parents were Marvin and Lucille Myers, and I was born here in Washington County, out on the Palmer Road that goes into Palmer. It's about, maybe about 3 miles out of Potosi. I have Myers and Evelyn Myers. My daddy worked in the tiff mines when I was little, tiny. He used to dig tiff. I think at one time he rode a truck out to Richwoods, Missouri, and worked with a lot of guys out there when they dug tiff. But I can remember when I was little that I used to go with him and Mom out to a tiff hole where he would go down in a bucket down in that hole with a pick and a shovel, and he'd dig down in there, and then we'd get him wound back up out of that hole in that bucket. And I can remember him picking the lead off the tiff. I think they sold it separately. I believe their sales, the tiff was separate from the lead. But I was really little then. I don't remember what year that was or anything. I was born in 1930, so it was back when that's what they did here, was they dug tiff and lead. We had like I said, an old log house. It only had a living room and a 1-bedroom and a kitchen. And then finally we built an attic upstairs. That was my room, and I remember my sisters, they stayed downstairs. We didn't have running water. We had a hand-dug well that my daddy dug, and we got the water up in a bucket with a chain on it. We didn't even have a pump on it. And we didn't have electric. I think they got electric after I got married and left home, probably in the 1940s. But we didn't even have anything operated by gas. We didn't have an automobile either. We used to walk. We walked into the grocery store, and then the grocery store had a delivery truck that had a driver that would take us back home with the groceries. And we walked to church, over to the Bates Creek Missionary Baptist Church. And then I can remember visiting around the neighbors, the neighboring farms, when they had I guess they thrashed their wheat and whatever products they had in the gardens. I can remember my mom and going over to help them do that, and we'd have a lot of good meals, I remember. But they worked really hard. We had a big garden and a lot of chickens. We had chicken for Sunday dinner. That's about the only time we had chicken, but my daddy was a hunter, and we had a lot of wild meat. We had lots of rabbits and lots of squirrels and things like that, and they were good. My mother was a good cook. Gosh, I can't remember. We washed on a washboard too. I remember that. We didn't have a washing machine, and she heated the water on the wood stove, and I would help her hang those clothes out on the clothesline. It was cold in the wintertime, though, to do that. We had good neighbors, I remember. They had, sometimes they rode their horses down to visit us, and my grandmother and my grandfather, they had a team of horses, and they always came to visit us in the wagon. That was my mother's mother. And of course, my mother's mother and my daddy, they were divorced. They had remarried, and then my mother's daddy would come in an automobile. He worked in East St. Louis, Illinois, and he had an automobile, and I remember them coming to visit us when we were little. But I think we had a creek that ran close by that had a lot of fish in, and we got to fish a lot. So, hello. I went to a country school. It was a one-room school, the Bates Creek School, and it was over on, over close to Bates Creek. I went there, I think, about 5 years, 5 grades. All of our grades was in the same school. It was heated by an old wood stove, and we didn't have kindergarten then. I went through the 1st through the 5th grade there before our school was moved into the Potosi area. But I think, if I'm not, it seems like my daddy told me that he went to school there in that same school. So he was born in 1905, so I don't really know what year the school was set up, but anyway, he went to school there. And my mother, she went to school over at the High Point School. That was further on out Palmer Road, out at towards Palmer. And that's where she went to school, and I guess that's how my mother met my daddy. We used to have dances. My grandmother had a big old piano, and my daddy played the fiddle, and I think some of the other brothers and some of the neighbors played other instruments, and they would just roll the floor covering back, and they would have their dances right there in the house, and just must have had a really good time to listen to the stories that they used to tell. So I guess that's about all I can remember.
You said you went up to the 5th grade?
I think there was...
School, then you went to Potosi. What did you do at Potosi School? Where was that at?
That was here in Potosi, at the Potosi Grade School. And I graduated from the 8th grade there.
There was only
one grade school here in Potosi.
And then you went to high school?
And then I went to high school. Graduated from the old high school here in Potosi in 1948.
And is that where your school ended there?
I didn't hear you.
Is that where your education ended at high school?
Well, yes, it ended there. Later on, when I went to work, I worked for the R3 school, and then I decided that I would quit that and go to work for the judicial system and work for the judge in the Washington County Courthouse here. And then I enrolled in Mineral Area College and took a class in criminal law. But that's the only college that I have. So, but I retired from the judicial system in 1994. I worked 17 years for the state of Missouri.
Did you give your dad's name?
Marvin Myers.
And your mother?
Lucille Youngblood Myers.
And tell me a little bit more, about Palmer. You said you used to go there. You lived about 3 miles away from Palmer?
No, 3 miles away from Potosi. Palmer was on out the Palmer Road. It seems like I remember there was an old store out there and a big old spring where a lot of people would gather around the spring. But that's about all I remember about Palmer, because I was little then, and it's hard to remember.
And you used to go out there when you were older, though, for entertainment?
Well, no, I didn't, but I think the neighbors did, and my daddy's, my mom and dad's friends, I think they did, but we just didn't travel much because we had to walk. We didn't have a horse to ride or...
And what do you remember about Potosi during, say, the time?
Here in Potosi? Well, I can remember one time we came into a carnival. They used to have a carnival set up, usually in the summertime. They'd set it up for a while, and Mom and Daddy brought us kids into the carnival, and we came in with another neighboring family, and I had never had an ice cream cone before. So they bought us an ice cream cone. Well, I ate all the ice cream out of that cone that I could get, and then I threw my cone away. And my mom said, "What did you do that for?" And I said, "Well, I didn't know you could eat the cone." think it was good to eat. That was something I remember. That's funny.
Did you go to movies?
Well, no, we didn't go to movies when I was growing up. Now, when I got old enough, I think I was 16, the first time I went to a movie. I was with my first boyfriend.
That was probably right after the war?
Well, that was probably in 40, well, it was during the war times, I think, because it would have been in 40, 44, 45, 46 in those years, because I graduated from high school in 48.
And what was the theater like?
Well, it had a balcony, I remember that, but I just can't remember too much about it, really, because I really didn't go that much.
Remember any of the movies? Or
I can't even remember the name of one movie that I saw.
Did they play newsreels during that time? Newsreels about the war?
Well, I don't remember. I just don't remember.
Popcorn, and they sell popcorn and soda?
Oh yes, we had popcorn and a soda. They had the Plaza, it was called the Plaza Theater, and they had a little grill that they grilled sandwiches, had sandwiches and things like that in, right by it, so.
Do you remember who ran it?
No, I really don't. It was probably Mr. Harry Blunt, because I remember Mr. Harry and Dorothy, and I believe they were the ones that owned it at that time.
That's the only one there was in town, right?
I believe so.
Do you remember when the drive-in?
I don't remember when the drive-in was built. I remember after I got married and taking my children and going to the drive-in, but I don't remember when it was built.
And when did you get married?
I got married in, I got married in 1949. And I had had 5 children. And that was Randy and Glenda and Sherry and Jerry and Eddie. They were Vance. I was married to a Vance then. Then we got a divorce, and 10 years later I remarried to Edmund Edgar, and we had 1 daughter, Tina. And
do any of those still live around this area?
they all, well, my son, they all live here but my daughter. She lives in Rolla, Missouri. All the rest of them are here.
Can you remember any of the other businesses?
The businesses around Potosi? You know, I can't even remember the name of the store that we used to go to. I remember the name of the man that drove the delivery truck that delivered our groceries, and that was Ed Richards, but I can't remember the name of the store. I don't.
Was it in Potosi or closer to your?
It was in Potosi, right here in the main part of Potosi.
And how did you shop in that store? Was it self-serve, or did they get the things for you? How did you go about that?
I don't remember that either. I just don't remember. I was just too little.
How did you get through Potosi?
Walked. We walked every step of the way.
So you walked?
And we'd always stop at that. There was a spring underneath the bridge out at the edge of Potosi. It would be where Jefferson comes up onto P Highway. Right there underneath that bridge, there used to be a spring under there, and we would always stop and get a drink because we'd be so thirsty, because that was probably 3 miles out that we had walked, and that was the best water. I don't know.
How would I find Bates? Is it still there?
The spring.
No, you said you lived in Bates?
In Bates Creek.
Oh, it's Bates Creek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was out of Bates Creek.
Where is that?
Well, that's out south of Potosi, Old 21 and P Highway Junction. You just continue on out P. It's P Highway now, but it used to be the Palmer Route. That was our address then, was Palmer Route. So.
About how far out P Highway?
About 3 miles out there, in the old house. It's still standing. My daddy made a barn out of it. After he built another house and used that one for a barn, the one I was born in.
Where did they dig the tip at?
Well, they dug the TIF over here in Potosi, and there's a housing project there. It was called Citadel, Citadel, I believe, is the way you spell it, and that's where the holes, the TIF holes were. And right now, there's a park over there, the Furman Delos Park. The Delos family donated that land to Washington County. I think there may be close to 40 acres there where they mined, and they had I suppose a TIF mill was in there to take care of all that. I can't remember that, and the park is marked with a huge monument. It's beautiful. It's a large rock, and it has Furman Delos Park, and it's just really pretty and could be really developed into a beautiful park, but so far the county hasn't done anything with it. But we walked through the woods. We didn't go out on the main road. We'd walk through the woods from my house over to there. So.
And you went with them while they dug the TIF for something to do? Or?
It was just because I guess they didn't have a babysitter. Okay. So, yes, I got to go.
So I guess they worked pretty hard.
They did. They worked real hard. Later on, as I believe maybe when I might have been in a 7th grade, I think the shoe factory was opened, and my mother and my daddy both worked at the shoe factory. My mother worked at the library down in the basement of the courthouse. I remember when I was little too. I'd forgot about that. But they both worked at the Brown Shoe Company when it opened. And my mom retired from the shoe company, and my daddy, he had to quit because of his health, so.
You never did work at the shoe factory, though?
Yes, I did. I worked at the shoe factory too. I was trying to remember when I went to work here. It was probably in 1964. I worked here just for a short time. I had cancer and was pretty sick there for a while. Well, I was only supposed to live 6 months to a year, and that was in '68. But I'm still here, so. Yeah.
What church did you go to?
What church?
Yeah, I think you said what was
Bates Creek Church. It was the Bates Creek Missionary Baptist Church.
And did you have activities there?
Well, we had a few. If we could get, somebody to sponsor us, sometime we have a ball game, something like that, but not very many because, we were too young and couldn't go by ourselves, so some of the adults would have to go with us, and they just didn't have much time. Didn't have much time to spend with us doing things like that.
Where did you get your clothes at?
Where did we buy our clothes? Boy, I can't even remember. I remember getting a pair of shoes one time that my mom didn't want me to have, but my daddy said I could have them, so he bought them for me. I don't think we had very much money, but I got those new shoes anyway. Remember that.
They do mail order?
Sometimes, yes, we had catalogs that we ordered things out of. I'd forgot about that too. So, that was...
Do you remember any of the catalogs?
Well, I think there was shoot. I believe it was Alden's. I remember an Alden's catalog. I remember a Sears catalog, but it seems like Alden's was older than that one. Might not have been though. But those were the only two, I think, that I remember seeing.
Did it take a long time to get?
It didn't take too long. No, it didn't take too long.
What kind of toys did you have at home?
Toys?
No, well, toys.
I was going to say, for Christmas, I always got a book because I love to read. And every Christmas, we would get a new dress and probably just things like that. We didn't have very many things, but we always got a book. And in our stocking, we'd have an orange or oh, and I remember my daddy going to town. When he would go to town by himself and we didn't go, he would always bring a candy bar back for us, and we would have to cut that candy bar in pieces, and we shared those pieces, and it lasted longer. I can't imagine a candy bar lasting that long, but my mom cut it in little pieces, so yeah.
What kind of chores did you have to do?
What kind of what?
Chores.
Chores? Well, I did the dishes. I did the dishes all the time. My sisters were a little bit too little to do the dishes, and we washed them in a dish pan and rinsed them in another pan, and then we dried them and put them away. We didn't have a dishwasher or a sink or anything like that. It was just an old wood stove, and we heated water in a tea kettle. And
do you know who built your house?
my daddy.
Okay.
Yes, he cut the wood himself. He cut the logs, and he hand planed them. Even the boards that went in the floor, I remember him doing that. And then when my mother got ready to put the covering down to go over the floor, there was tar paper on there, but then she took some tow sacks that grain had come in, that they were empty. Well, she sewed all those together and tacked them down on the floor, and then she painted them. And that was our floor covering. It was really pretty. We thought it was pretty then. Oh, she canned all of our vegetables, she canned all of our fruit, and she canned all of our meat. We didn't have a refrigerator or ice box or anything like that, so everything was canned.
Do you have a spring nearby?
No, we didn't. I'm sure there was one there, but we had that hand-dug well, and that's where we got our water, so we didn't go to a spring.
And do you remember getting electricity, or never did get electricity?
No, there was no electric in our home until after I was married.
Did I ask you what other activities you had, like at school, things that you did with friends?
Well, I can remember we played bingo, and we played the outside games, a lot of the games that I've even forgot how to play, but drop the handkerchief and ring around the rosy and all that kind of stuff. That's what we did.
Did they have organized sports in the Potosi High School by then?
Have what?
Organized sports?
I
Basketball,
don't
volleyball.
remember if they did. I'm sure they did, but I don't remember that.
So you never did have did you have a radio?
No. No, my grandmother lived right across the creek, my daddy's mother, and she did have a radio, and we would, I would go walking over there. She was blind and bedfast. She had fallen and broke her hip, and she was bedfast, and I took care of her quite a bit, and I would go over there and listen to the radio, and I remember the Gangbusters and My Gal Sunday and things that probably nobody, I don't know if they're even in existence anymore, but we used to listen to that on her radio. I did.
Do you remember around the time of the war, hearing Roosevelt on the radio?
No, I don't. She probably listened to that while I was at school or something, but I don't remember it.
Listen to the Grand Ole Opry?
Yes, we sure did listen to the Grand Ole Opry. I love country music.
Yeah.
And you never got a Delco electric system or anything like that? It was just,
No.
and of course,
I think, I believe they had a gas-operated refrigerator. It seemed to me like that maybe, it might have been right after I left, right after I got married. I think they had a gas-operated refrigerator before they got the electric in. I think they used that, but I don't remember it.
you remember getting your first telephone?
No, we never had a telephone. I was already married and gone from home before the phones. We didn't have one.
Do you remember anything about what it was like during World War II?
No.
Any of the activities going on?
No.
What kind of equipment did they use to dig tip?
Pick and a shovel. Now that's what my daddy had. And he cut a lot of wood too. I remember one time he was out cutting wood and he had a big old broad axe, and it kind of jumped off of the whatever he was cutting on and cut his head, and he had to walk all the way in here to Potosi to the doctor. It was terrible. But no, we didn't.
There's no hospital around here.
Well, he came to the went to the doctor's office is what he did. I'm sure it was Dr. Cresswell. He was our doctor. So.
Oh, he was a doctor back then?
Mm-hmm.